You don't know me, but if you've played Fallout New Vegas, you know all about the various weapons that can be found throughout the game. Some are given to you, many are bought, and some can be found lying around because somebody left them there for one reason or another. There's also a selection of weapons that you can craft. You could even theoretically play the entire game with just these crafted weapons. But what if you wanted to take this a step further? What if you didn't just want to only use crafted weapons, but also only crafted healing supplies, crafted armor, and crafted ammo too? Can I beat Fallout New Vegas with only crafted items? Now let's quickly go over the rules. Firstly, only craftable items and the materials used are allowed. This creates a lot of weird quirks, such as food and armor not being available until I've not only killed and or gathered the necessary animals or vegetables, but also after cooking them too. I'll also be allowing myself to sell whatever items I find to buy more items to craft with, but no gambling. The only other exception to this rule is quest items. Rule 2, no companions because I can't craft any of them unless they've got a crafting recipe at any point, but they can act as a crafting bench. 3, I must complete the following GRA challenges. Crackerjack timing because of tin grenades and time bombs. Yeah, see, because of Fido. Master of the Arsenal because all the Mad Bomber weapons come from the GRA DLC and thus are GRA weapons. And Overkill because of the Fat Mines. And with all that out of the way, let's begin. I woke up in Doc Mitchell's house. I nearly died, and I want to have my revenge. For my special stats, strength and perception were at 8 because I'll be hoarding a lot of junk, and plus most of my firepower will be in the form of explosives. Endurance at 9 because I'll be spending a long time only using bombs without any armor. Charisma at 1, you know why. Intelligence at 8 for skill points. Agility I left alone. And I drained luck to 1 because pretty much all my weapons didn't have good crit synergy, and as I stated earlier, I'm not gambling this time. For my tag skills, I picked the 3 that were most necessary for this run: Explosives, Science, and Survival. Repair also has a lot of crafting recipes, but it's all for ammo, most of which I'm not going to be using because there's only one craftable gun in the game, though I will be funneling points into it for a couple of perks. As for my traits, I chose Skilled and Good Nature to maximize the amount of points I can get here. After that, I dropped literally everything in my inventory aside from a few things that I could use and start my journey. Now the first thing I did was search around Good Springs for all the junk I could find. Here I did try to do a cool glitch where I could skip the entire tutorial by crafting healing powder before Sunny Smiles requests it, but no matter what order I talked to her, my game worked entirely as intended, no matter what I did. Oh well, at least I can break down the ammo she gave me and sell off my varmint rifle. Someone should really do a run with that gun. Because I couldn't do the Ghost Town gunfight quest yet, I instead made a satchel charge, some nice drinks, got the Heave Ho perk at level 2, and found the crafting recipe for powder charge, then learned some escape convicts and Prim to the MCR station just outside. Then I visited the Lonesome Road DLC. I didn't stay long though, I just came there to look for a few more pieces of junk before having to leave after running into the first sentry bot. Thanks to that effort, I gathered enough materials to craft a few more powder charges. Feeling good about them, I did some work for the powder gangers in hopes of gaining enough reputation to get free dynamite for them. Unfortunately, with the jobs Eddie gave me, I couldn't. All it did was cost me all of my powder charges. From here, I pretty much just ran location to location, skedaddling away from any dangers that came my way. I went to Mojave Outpost and did Ranger's Ghost Quest, and when I went to Nipton, I did Volpe's quest. I unfortunately was not able to kill Oliver Swanwick. I know, what a shame. I then traveled up the mountain and got jump scared by a centaur. Then after running from some raiders, watching the NCR and some traveling merchants kill some night stalkers that I didn't know could show up here, and running away from a frickin' mole rat, I eventually made it to Novak. There I helped Boone out with his dead wife killer problem, and thanks to that I leveled up to 4, and instead of taking the educated perk like I always do, I instead took the travel light perk. Because if you couldn't tell, I've been having a hard time running away from all my problems. At least now, I can finally not deal with them, and it works. From there, I went up north to Boulder City to handle the hostage situation with the Great Khans. I tried blowing up Jessup and the other guy, but afterwards the other Khan shot me down before I could get to the NCR troopers. So instead, I just paid him off with the caps that I collected. From here, I briefly watched as Victor entered a Pokemon battle with Fire Ant. Then I discovered just a few more locations before finally making it to level 6 and finally taking the Mad Bomber perk. With this newfound power, I immediately made some tin grenades, made from tin cans, made from the special ingredient tin from the far lands of Tinland. I don't know, my dealer won't tell me where he gets it. I only had enough materials for 5 of them, but I'll take it. I then went around for some more supplies, and then I went back to Prim and took care of their lawlessness problem by crafting the robot into a sheriff. I then did the GI Blues quest, choosing to end things peacefully. I then shot straight up to level 8 and took the toughness perk because everything else just seemed either useless or actively detrimental at the time. I was then able to raise my explosive skill enough to be able to craft MFC grenades. Now I don't have to worry about running out of explosives for a while. I was still hungry for more EXP, so I went to the Garrett twins and got some escorts and their depths back. Notably Caleb, their last debtor, was harder to shake down due to being on the strip, and if any of my grenades' explosions hit anyone else, the Securitrons on the strip would shoot me. Eventually though, I managed to wait long enough where everyone else had run away, and Caleb was taken care of. Then I did some bounty hunting on the Fiend leaders. This got me my second written recipe from Cook, which was his famous stew. Defy was trickier to handle thanks to his posse and his turf having a more open area. Satchel charges served me well here. And lastly, when I went to get Violet, for some reason only one of her dogs spawned in, which normally would be a good thing, because hey, less enemies to fight, but now I'm missing out on a lot of dog meat that I could have cooked into dog steaks. What I found most strange of all was the fact that none of their leaders' heads got mangled up, even though that I only used MSC grenades on them. Maybe it was because I hadn't gotten the Bloody Mess perk? I don't know. Regardless, I turned in the heads, got to level 10, and took the Strong Back perk. It was then I decided to start the Gecko Hunt. What's the Gecko Hunt? It's the hunt where I track down every single type of gecko, skin them for their hides, and so that I could finally no longer be nude. First I got some regular geckos, then some golden geckos, and then some fire geckos. Last to get was some green geckos, but those guys are all the way in Zion Canyon, and I don't want to even think about the possibility of being completely defenseless up there, so I traveled all the way to Camp Guardian Caves. This journey was an absolute nightmare. First I saw a flying Night Stalker. Luckily I managed to run away and run directly into some fire geckos instead. This led me to a rock where they couldn't get me, but I had a completely new problem. Cazadors. They were everywhere. Out of range from my tin grenades, but if I were to get off this rock I would surely be overwhelmed. Luckily I died of gravity instead. These Cazadors continued to cause problems for me, but eventually I escaped their territory by jumping into a nearby lake and swimming the rest of the way there. Once I made it to my destination, and after I climbed up the hill, I found Private Halford. Unfortunately, I didn't have the medicine skill to save him, so instead I just finished him off myself and took the formula to make dog tag fists and left. Then after collecting 20 NCR dog tags via pickpocketing, I crafted the dog tag fists and felt very accomplished. Then after getting the reinforced leather armor from a Viper, I then started on the Honest Hearts DLC. It starts like how all good stories start, with the brutal death of an entire crew with the exception of one person, me. I then traveled for a good 30 seconds before running into Follows Chalk, a native here in Zion Canyon. He directed me to Joshua Graham, the previous legate of Caesar's Legion. It pretty much sets me up with direction for this DLC, which, I'll be real, is just a scavenger hunt, with a couple other things packed in. Before I did though, curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to see if I could kill Joshy Boy in my current state. First, I tried punching him to death with my dog tag fists, but seeing as I hadn't put a single point in my unarmed skill, he won by a landslide. Second try, however, and I put 2 satchel charges right next to him, and then started lobbing MFC grenades. To my surprise, it only took 1 grenade before the chain reaction instantly blew him up. Neat. After loading back my quick save, I started on that scavenger hunt, which I'll rapid fire through right now. Finding and repairing a compass, getting a pair of walkie-talkies, lunchboxes, and a doctor's bag. Then I met up with a Mormon named Daniel. He sends me to clear out some areas and find a map. First I cleared out bear traps from the bridge, but at this point, the wildlife and the whitelegs had been stressing what little supplies I could muster, so I decided to stop working on the main quest until I got those goddamn green gecko hides. Which, eventually, I did. After searching through every spot the wiki said they'd be before finally finding them, I then went back to make my gecko-backed armor. But then, because of the accumulated radiation that I had taken from eating foods all this time, it dropped my survival skill just out of the required amount. So I decided to do some more quests until I leveled up one last time. I lobbed some grenades at the white legs and then watched as they fought some mantises, blew up some more, and then punched one of them before I finally made it to level 14. Added like 5 more points to my survival skill and took the heavyweight perk because I'm a fucking idiot who read it wrong. And then finally made my gecko-backed reinforced leather armor. Let's fucking go. I'm no longer naked. All it took was losing my mind. The gecko-backed armor is pretty good too. Not only does it have 15 DT, but it also adds additional resistances to poison, fire, and radiation. And because it's still light armor, I don't lose out on my travel light perk. Now let's finish Honest Hearts. All that was left for me to do was to clear out some Yao Guai, which thanks to my new armor, wasn't as difficult as it could have been, but hey, at least I got the Master of the Arsenal challenge done. With all of my problems out of the way, all that was left to do was to decide whether the Sorrows would evacuate or fight. I chose to leave simply because I had never done so before. Joshua then forces himself on me as a companion, and he decimates pretty much all the white legs that we ran into. Eventually, this leads to a fight against Salt Upon Wounds, the chieftain. He was outnumbered 7-1 though, so he died soon enough. All that was left was for Daniel to get mad at me because apparently I didn't do everything that I could to protect the Sorrows, and then I blew up the tunnel that they escaped into so that they could, actually escape. And that's Honest Hearts. After I got back to the Mojave, I leveled up to 16 and took the Piercing Strike perk. I decided that now I would check the Crackerjack Timing Challenge off my list, so I went around and found some Cazadors and blew them up with my tin grenades. Then I traveled to Black Mountain to do the crazy quest, choosing to fix up Rhonda for Tabitha so that I could get a nice 900 experience. And then I did the Booted quest so that I could get Powder Gangers to give me free dynamite and stuff. Next, I decided that now I was going to go to the tops, and so I arrived on the strip, walked into the giant casino, and started lobbing grenades. Several corpses later, I made out with a platinum chip and turned it into Mr. House, and decided that he was full of it, so I went down to his other basement and beat the lights out of him. With the strip hating me, the NCR liking me, and not wanting to do 2 yes men runs in a row, I decided to work for the Legion. Mr. Salad's task is simple: blow up the Securitrons underneath his port. No problem. I go inside, punch the Protectron's eye out, blow up the generators inside, and my game crashes. Dang. So I simply set them up to start running instead. Baldy won't know the difference. His next task for me was to recruit the Boomers, but first I made a detour to the other side of the continent. I visited the Great Khans, and taught them how to do some chems, freed their runner from crucifixion, and got the recipe for turbo. I then went back on my way to the Boomers. Dodging their bombardment was a breeze, and they were so impressed that they wanted me to solve all their problems, which I do, first by swiping the mini-nuke that they have in their mess hall. Then I did their ant-crushing quest, swiping 2 more mini-nukes as I did. I then visited the baby boomer Pete, and got up in real life to use the bathroom as he babbled on about something or whatever. I then let him yap for some more extra fame. I then grinded a bit up to level up again because I needed 5 more points of my repair skill. While doing so, I cleared out Quarry Junction from its death claws, using bottle cap mines to cripple their legs, and with the use of one of my fat mines, along with some time bombs, to do the same to the Den Mother. She's a hardy lass though, and so it took a few tries. Eventually though, I managed to bring her down. I even got a couple more mini nukes as I took one from her egg clutch, and I took one of her eggs too, so that I could get the Wasteland Omelette recipe. One problem though, as it requires lake lurking meat, which in my experience is almost impossible to get, so I probably won't be making use of this recipe. Eventually though, I did make it to 20, and I got the 2nd rank of Demolition Expert, and I repaired the solar panels. The Boomers now love me, and they show their love by sending me off to raise a bomber from I think these guys are just using me. Regardless, I had already marked the bomber's location, so I simply fast traveled over to it, and it was revived lickety-split. Now that I had done a lot for them, they were willing to fight for me, and before I leave them for good, I snatched 3 more mini-nukes from them. Anyway, Caesar was happy with my work, so he sent me to recruit the White Gloves. But seeing as now the NCR viewed me as a smiling troublemaker, I decided to get one last recipe before it became impossible for me to do so. I went to the Crimson Caravan and got to the point where they wanted me to buy out Cass's caravan. One problem though, I do not have the barter nor the speech skill to do so. I need to make a whole bunch of levels fast, so I went to Gamora and started swinging. Oh, wait. That only got me up to level 21. Oh yeah, Old World Blues. I started on Old World Blues. I have been kidnapped, and from a crazy turn of events, I also have been crafted on as now I am a lobotomite. They remove my brain, heart, and spine, just like your average politician. I'm then told by the collection of floating jars of brains that I now have to fix all their problems. This is like the third time this has happened in a row. Well, at least I'm kinda locked into this one. But whatever. They need me to collect some stuff. An antennae, a stealth suit, and an upgrade to a sonic emitter. Then after talking to them for a while, I made it to level 22 and took the Nuka Chemist perk for more Nuka Cola crafting recipes. As for the DLC itself, nothing much interesting happened. The only thing that I could really note was that for a lot of the time, I was short on health supplies, which made it a lot more terrible than it probably could have been. The real value of this DLC, though, are the various talking household appliances around. Mainly Muggy, the tiny desk Securitron, who gives syringes, wonder glue, and scrappy electronics, and the biological research station because of the nice little garden he provides, as well as the fact that he turns plant material into salient green, which then I can craft into whatever plant I want, which is super convenient for all the different recipes. I also get the schematics for Fido, the only craftable gun in New Vegas, and probably the best weapon that I'll use in this challenge, as it's not only a ranged weapon that isn't finicky to use, but it also gives a use to all the bullet parts that I've accrued. Anyhow, I then made it to the Forbidden Zone. There, I fought a giant enemy rad scorpion. From there, I talked to Dr. Mobius. He's the antagonist of the entire DLC, by the way. I then got my break back, went back home, and thanks to me talking out with all the other scientists, I was able to enact a science revolution and become supreme overlord of the think tank. Side note, I'm not going to go into the other two DLCs for this video. I think this has already gone long enough, and maybe if this video does well enough, I'll make a follow-up where I do them. Now then, I went back to the Mojave, convinced Cass to sell away her company, and told her to follow me so that I could get the moonshine recipe. Didn't realize I had to talk to her first. Once she was taken care of, I then took a detour all the way back to Good Springs to finally knock down those bottles Sunny Smile set up. Later, in less than an hour, I helped the Powdered Gangers take over. It was a unique feeling completing this beginner quest after becoming a fucking cyborg and using my cyborg dog to do so. Once that was over, I went back to the strip, used Fido to wipe out every White Glove Society guy I did see, completing, yeah, see? Caesar won't be happy with me, but I don't care. He's lucky that I'm following his orders anyway. While I was at the Ultralux, I went down to their kitchen and took the recipe for their Brahmin Wellington, which is the last paper note that I need to collect for obtaining recipes in the base game. Then I went back to Caesar, who wasn't happy with me at all, but he still sent me to destroy the Brotherhood of Steel. On the way, I leveled up to 28 and got the 3rd rank in Demolition Expert. The Brotherhood was no trouble. I utilized Fido to take out their welding party. On their first floor, I used the laser turrets to do the work for me, and on the second floor, MFC grenades and my dog tag fists served me well. Once the bunker was blown up, I made my way back to Caesar's tent, and he gives me his most trusted task, curing him of his brain tumor. I was easily able to craft a doctor's bag and buy some surgery tools, but unfortunately, I don't know the crafting recipe for a human skull without a brain tumor, so he died. No matter, the show must go on, as they say, so Lucia sent me to assassinate President Kimball. Only when I arrived, because I can't wear the NCR disguise they gave me, the NCR started opening fire on me, so I just chucked a few grenades until everyone died and left. All that was left for me now was to do the Overkill challenge, so I visited Violet's spot where all her dogs respawned, nuked them, then I went to Old Lady Gimson and nuked 5 of her dogs, and then lastly I gathered up 4 coyotes nearby Good Springs Cave and nuked them as well. And with that, it was finally time for the second Battle of Hoover Dam. First I talked to Legged Lanius about the plans to take the dam, and leveled up to 30 because of that, and took splash damage as my last perk. Me and the boys raided the top of the dam. I had crafted over 400 MFC grenades in preparations for this, and as I wiped through all the troopers on the top, I had barely scratched the surface of my supply to do so. Once inside, I fought 4 heavy troopers with Fido, and then ran through the halls, watching my fellow legionnaires fight the troopers and rangers inside. Eventually, I found myself facing off against General Oliver in his private basement. I used the dog tag fists on the basic troopers so that I wouldn't waste ammo. And for an irony that's dramatic. No, not dramatic irony, this is different. And then, Oliver used the power of glitches to keep me from winning. You've probably seen his bug before. Oliver is supposed to be on the top floor, but he stopped on his way in the second floor. I wondered if running straight to the top would fix this, but the rangers on the second floor did what Benny couldn't do to me before I could find out. Second time around, and things worked out as they were supposed to. I tried using my wealth of MFC grenades to take out the rangers, but they were too tanky and nimble for that to be effective, so I brought back out Fido again, and used his bullets to cripple the veteran rangers' chests and stun-lock them to death. Last was General Oliver and his posse, and this is where I pulled out all the stops. After taking every alcoholic beverage, chem, drink, and food that I had left, I chucked a couple of nuka grenades at the big shots, and they all died. I then used MFC clusters to wipe out the stragglers, and then I reported back to Lanius, finishing the run. So, can I beat Fallout New Vegas with only crafted items? Yes! I think this is the most lopsided run that I've ever done in New Vegas. I literally started out running around naked across the Mojave, and then ending it as a nuclear power threat. Although it felt nightmarish at times, I had a lot of fun with this run. But oh my god, I miss being able to buy stim packs. I'm never playing a run like this again. Another thing I'll mention is that with some weapons like the gas bomb and the powder charges, I barely use them at all, so I might dedicate some challenge runs for them in the future. Regardless, thanks for watching my video. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your friends. It'd really help out a small-time YouTuber like me. Feel free to leave any ideas you have for future videos. Until then, I'm the Corruptist, and I'll see y'all next time.